Do y'all know what this means? Does anybody know what this means? Nobody knows what this. Y'all don't know a spaceship when you see one? You telling me during a pandemic, Nintendo has managed to build a theme. Nigga, this is world domination. Does anybody see? You telling me I can go to a theme park without smelling like urine and the bathrooms? No. It's a trap. It's a trap. Say what you want about Nintendo, okay, but they got the drip. They got the sauce, they got the flashiness, they got the mushroom. Introducing the man behind it all. My man is not having none of it this year. For those who don't know, this is Miyamoto Shigeru. He's pretty much the head of Mario. He's saying 2021, we are out here. He straight up told us in an interview that we need to chill out with the rockets, the AR-15s, and let it breathe for a minute. Let us catch our breath so that we don't drown in a sea of video games inspired by
Are you what? Your mom said she's gonna beat the white out.
Now, if you don't know, Miyamoto is pretty much the guy behind everything Nintendo. He's the face, the creator, the CEO. He's very much that Nick. He is personally responsible for delivering Donkey Kong, Mario from God himself. And now he's here to deliver some whoop ass to everybody.
That ain't before you get a whoop.
And it's rare to see Miyamoto do interviews at all. Recently, it's been more so because he's been building Nintendo World, which is going to give Neverland a run for its money. But this time he did it over Zoom, and basically he says to everybody, we built a spaceship. No, I'm just. No, the actual interview was done by the New Yorker, and they asked about his perception of the world in general and in video games at this point in his career. The big question seemed to be, how do you feel about the situation of shooters in the industry? He did not hold back, which is surprising. Now I'm gonna put up the quotes, but basically he's just as annoyed as we all should be at this point. He was real keen on saying that there needs to be more variety in terms of creating fun, because, quote, I think humans are wired to experience joy when we throw the ball and hit the target, i.e. just shooting guns. But, however, I have some resistance to focusing on a single source of pleasure. Translation, what are y'all doing? This is boring. Honestly, I agree. It's just too many studios fighting for the same Fortnite money, and it's affecting the landscape in general, the players, and our wallets. We got another one. Come on in.
Finally.
Miyamoto acknowledges how heavy the industry is leaning on just simply eviscerating your enemies, and how there's often just a lack of giving a different point of view, and it's a problem. You get the sense that the process for creating games isn't just different today, it's completely upside down, in my opinion, and Miyamoto does not hide his opinion on what's driving that. It's money. He goes on to say that just because the type of game sells well doesn't mean we should be so eager to recycle each other's work. Now, if you played your share of video games, you can kind of see where he's coming from. It's not so much that he's from a different era where things were traditional, but more so that he's literally seen the landscape go from trend to trend, and he knows where it leads. In his 40 years at Nintendo, I'm sure he's lived to understand the difference between adapting a title and fabricating one, which is a big problem in the market currently. In a time where fabricating is efficient, and yes, it keeps the shareholders happy, I think he felt compelled to say it as direct as possible. Hey, listen, y'all, putting a gun together with a sword is not groundbreaking. Now, personally, it's about time somebody took up some shots, and if anyone was gonna do it, it might as well be him. I guess what I'm saying is, it sucks to keep watching interviews, game awards year after year to see nothing but praises for the laziest ideas. Now, many of us aren't as experienced as Miyamoto, and we might not even be game developers, but honestly, we don't need to be. Today's games seem to be rolled out like iPhones, and everybody now wants to be an iPhone. It's easy to see how a company like Nintendo has its own bubble. At this point, they're like Disney. I get it, but I don't think that's where Miyamoto's coming from. The guy makes a lot of common sense points. When you look at how he's been able to turn something as simple as rescuing a blonde lady into a masterpiece for generations, you kind of have to know what you're talking about. Hell, these days, it's hard to even see a series past 5 years. There's only so many times you can reinvent a gun, and that's the problem. Miyamoto's got his credibility for a reason. The dude is very meticulous, and he's strict with his work, which, regardless of what I feel about Nintendo, it's just the nature of him building his legacy. The reality is, Miyamoto recognizes what a lot of big names don't, and that is, You need to reinvent yourself, your strategy, your creativity. You need to reinvent it. If you're not able to do that, it's likely because the premise of your product is based on pulling a trigger at everything you don't like. Now, this is just my observation, but if his work has shown us anything, it's that it's very easy to be tired. It would be a cakewalk for him to phone in Mario for the next 3 to 5 years, to copy paste assets, to lean on $500 graphics cards and go straight to market. But that's not what he's getting at. That's what separates what he does from, I don't know, every other developer, Sonic the Hedgehog. So here's the thing, when he says it's not ideal to have everybody doing it just because it sells well, that's not just him being bitter or old or traditional. I think he's actually doing us a favor by giving knowledge that frankly he doesn't even have to. I mean seriously, over here in the States, if you're in his position, nigga, you say something like that and you out of a job. Step out. A little further down, he goes into detail explaining how to create a good game, and he says to achieve a harmony in a game, you need a dash of truth and a bit of lie to go along with it. That's the kind of game I try to create. You take things you've experienced in your life, sensations, feelings, and then try to conjure them in the game world. Now, I ain't gonna lie, it sounds pretty generic, but when you think about it, he's one of the few that actually walks that walk. Usually this would come across as the generic E3 speech about originality, but the dude's got the catalog to prove it. It kind of feels different when he says it, because when most people say it, we have to learn after the fact that they don't actually have the authority to do any of that. They can't practice any of what they're preaching. Behind closed doors, investors have complete creative control over them, and all they can tell you is what they wish to happen. The words unique or different or groundbreaking, they sound pretty nice in a speech, but to a lot of investors, that makes them very nervous. I don't know about you guys, but I happen to realize a lot of what he was saying in the games I was playing during the holidays. I played Metro Exodus, huge title, but complete burnout for the same reason Miyamoto talked about. I immediately went to not caring about anything the game threw at me because it felt like the exact same thing on every other game. It felt like the game was trying to outfun itself as fast as possible. How do you do that? It was giving me what I completely expected in a Mad Max title. That's not to say that I didn't know what I was getting into. I knew what the title previously was, but good God, it was the same, in the same exact predicament as the last two games, in the same exact viewpoint, in the same. Nigga, this is just irresponsible. By the time I got to the desert area, yep, there's a desert area, I was exhausted at the game trying to get me to have fun through the same loot and shoot I've been playing for 10 years. Now that's just my experience, but I think I'm not alone in saying not every game needs to be an open world Die Hard movie. And I've got to give it to Miyamoto because at least he shows restraint enough not to go in that direction. And let's be honest, if he did decide to, Call of Reggie would be the next. Oh, hell no. But anyway, Miyamoto continues in the most polite Japanese way possible to say, we pretty much trash. And if he could change the world, he would get people to be more polite towards one another and reflect that in their games. Now this really isn't news. In my opinion, it's very unlikely because the majority of people that say that usually just blow up on a Starbucks employee. From a personal standpoint, Miyamoto is a genuine dude. He's pretty cool. When asked about his creating the GoldenEye, the dude actually insisted that the main character visit his shot enemies in the hospital. If that's not genuine, I don't know what is. It really didn't seem like the Nintendo business or money chase really changed him all that much, and it makes you appreciate his commitment much more. I can only imagine what the Mario franchise would look like if he'd given the reins over to somebody else. I mean, look at Sonic right now. I remember playing the Supersonic Racers, and it was really fun. The music was crazy. The experience was crazy. And somehow, we're here. Speaking of theme parks, you might have heard they were dying. Apparently Nintendo does not think so. Yahoo! That's bullshit. A few weeks back, they unveiled their secret project in Osaka, Japan, despite the uphill battle with COVID. Building this place cost $40 billion, and it's been in development since 2012. But it's finally a place now. You got the blocks, you got bombs, goddamn, what is, wait a minute. It has a lot of surprises. You can go get the wristbands that actually work. You can scan them and unlock parts of the park that actually work. You can go get the wristbands. Oh my God, has just a personal touch to it and a different creative direction that you can definitely tell Miyamoto was a part of. This is true Miyamoto fashion. They pulled out all the stops. You got the food, mushroom, the clean tape. Man, my life sucks. I hate it here. There are plans to create another one in Universal Studios California, but if I'm being honest, I don't know. Over in the States though, it's, how do I say this? Over in the States, we're working on some issues right now. Anyway, let me know if I'm being too harsh. Do you think we're gonna get it, or do you think it's just a bad time all the way around, especially with COVID and all that stuff? Other than that, y'all take it easy.